Yes, so welcome everyone. So we are today managing stress is Coach Sarah's expertise and much needed topic. I always joke that for me running events, I get to organize topics that are needed, of course, by all of you, but loving enough, we need this. We need this absolutely right now. And just figuring out and this is Sarah's expertise is, just better understanding what stress is, just digging more than just the maintenance, because I feel that understanding where it stems from really helps us to better work through that. I know my personal work on de-stressing these days always could use a little bit of love. So thank you, Sarah, for doing this for us. For those who do not know, my name is Jill. I am the client success and event specialist here with Amla Vita. I am also a health coach along with Sarah. So that is, I wear lots of different hats here. I'll hand it over. I've been rambling way too much already, but just a few housekeeping rules. So we do ask that if you guys can keep yourselves on mute, you already are, you all know the kind of the housekeeping rules. But if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat box. I will be keeping an eye on the chat box for the entire time. And then if you do have questions that, just put them all in the chat box. We'll save room at the end for Q&A. So I'll make sure to keep track of all of that, and we'll give Sarah some time at the end to answer all of those. But please continue, say hi, engage in the chat box, introduce yourselves, share LinkedIn, share Instagram, whatever you want. We want this to definitely be, engaging for everyone. So with all of that being said, I will go ahead and hand it over to Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. And thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully you're here to learn more about managing your stress. And if you caught that tidbit of the beginning of our conversation, one of those great strategies that Jill and I have so enjoyed is our pets during this super fun global pandemic time. So I don't have a slide on pets, but definitely animals. We enjoy the shares there. So feel free to get going in the chat box here with an introduction if you want to share where you're from as well. I always like to see who's joining these webinars. So if you don't know me, I live in Seattle. We've got a lot of Chicago representation for our core base of Amla Vita. And it's great to already start seeing coming through that we've got a lot of other representation. So that's awesome. And with that for today, we are here because of Amla Vita. So awesome. I see another Seattle, New York as well. So I'd love to also just continue to keep those questions going within the chat box. We've got a variety of folks here. Stress is universal, but we know the reasons that we're here probably different. And also the ways that you may know or not know Amla Vita is different too. So I'd love to hear a simple yes, no in the chat box if you have either attended another Amla Vita webinar before. You can put a yes there. Or you could put a yes if you're a current or former Amla Vita client. No if you are new. So I'll keep monitoring throughout. Okay, great. Looks like so far what I'm seeing, we're about 50-50 here. So some quick background about Amla Vita. We focus on all aspects of life, career, leadership, life, health. And at the end of the day, just like our name means love your life, it's really our goal through our community of coaches to help support you in loving your own. And so as you can imagine, being able to manage your stress plays a large part in that. And it's a hot topic for my clients, especially now more than ever. So I'm excited to share some of those nuggets with you today. And so a little bit about me first. How about a yes or no in the chat box if you know me already? If we've either worked together, that's a yes. If you've attended one of my other webinars, maybe you've read my health and wellness monthly newsletter, no is great too. So perfect. Either way, background about me, I am one of the health and career coaches here at Amla Vida. So like Jill, I enjoy wearing many hats, but stress is a topic for all of my clients, whether you fall on the health track or the career side or a little bit of everything in between. And before I joined Amla Vida, the majority of my professional experience was in the advertising world. So type a yes in the chat if you have former agency or marketing experience. For those of you who do, you know that stress and burnout are a big part of that world. So with that, this is a topic that's been near and dear to my heart on a personal level, but also nowadays too, I so enjoy being able to support my clients. For me, starting in the agency world, making that decision to pivot to full-time coaching, finding that greater fulfillment through my professional work was one of those keys to manage my own stress. And another area that you'll hear me referring back to a lot within today's webinar is on the personal side of things, and how I've also managed my stress primarily through my passion for Taekwondo. So with that, I'll have some pictures and tiebacks later on through that journey. But with that, we will continue onward. So here's what we are going to cover today. Again, I don't think I have to convince all of you that managing stress is important. You're here today for a reason, but we're going to cover some background stats that further reinforce that point before we explore the different ways that we self-sabotage. With my coaching with my clients, it's all about helping them to notice their own patterns. It's either their patterns of behavior, patterns of thinking, and any of those patterns that are not serving us are essentially ways that we self-sabotage. And with that, quick poll again, I'd love to hear a simple yes or no if you've had any previous experience with coaching before. Doesn't matter if it's career, life, leadership. If you've had that experience, yes. If you're new to coaching, no. And with that, either way, coaching is about noticing those patterns, and we're living our lives. We're in it day to day. So it's much more difficult to notice the forest from the trees, if you will. So as that guide for my clients, I'm all about being able to help them notice those patterns, to explore strategies like the ones that we're going to talk about today. But then it's also about working together through that journey of implementation. So learning's great, but I'm going to really encourage you to keep that interaction going, not only today, but taking those commitments with you moving forward. Because learning without action, well, it's just potential for change, potential for stress management. So my goal here is that we help you start to develop your commitments. We're not going to learn everything and anything in this next hour, but we're going to pack in as much as possible. And with that, explore how myself and how coaching can potentially support you as part of that process. So feel free throughout. If there are questions that you have, plop them in the chat. I'll do my best where possible to answer them along the way, but we will begin about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for other Q&A. And another great way to continue the conversation would be to schedule a consult with one of our relationship specialist team members. So obviously I'm a big fan of coaching. If coaching seems like it's of interest to you, like it can help you, one of the benefits of you attending today's webinar is that if you schedule one of those consults, that you'll receive a coupon code for a membership to receive your first session free. So that's our thank you to you for joining today. So Jill's going to be throwing that consult link in the chat box. So I really encourage you to sign up for a time to have one of those conversations if you're interested in learning how coaching can really help support your stress management and your unique goals further. All right, so with that, let's dive in. First off, why stress matters. So if you've attended one of my webinars before, I'd like to kick off with a stat that actually is already outdated. It's from 2019. It's from pre-COVID times, but it's showing that through a Gallup poll that in the world, we are more stressed than ever, but Americans especially charted off at the top as the most stressed people in the world. So that's not a place that I think any of us wants to be in. And you can see from this visual here as well that these levels of stress that we are feeling are at their highest it's been in now more than a decade. And so those feelings of whether it be anger at the bottom there, but on the rise, worry a bit higher and on the rise, and stress at the very top there and still rising. We know that this is such a hot topic for us to really continue putting in that work to solve for, because stress is core to our emotional and physical well-being. And so we're going to absolutely explore ways we can start making those shifts today. And with that, I'd love to just ask another question too. So this poll, the way that it was determined how stressed people were, we're asking a simple question. And that question is, were you stressed out a lot of the day yesterday? So simple yes or no in the chat. As with coaching, there's never a right or wrong with the answer. I'll say for myself, that answer was yes. It was a lot of little things combined. I am really good at overcommitting myself to activities. And so with that, a lot of pressure around running late for appointments, forgetting my phone, not having that ability to stay connected when I needed it. My new puppy, that brings me so much joy, but he was also being really difficult on the leash. That was also making me late to where I was going. So all of those little things added to my own answer of yes, absolutely. Stress a lot of the day yesterday. So it doesn't matter the reasons there. We all have so many of those. And that's what this next slide shows here too. You don't have to read all of these to know. It's just a sampling of the different things that get in our way that cause stress. And so one of the coaching programs that I really enjoyed was through Bulletproof. That's where this is from, the Human Potential Institute. So with that, if you've ever heard of Bulletproof coffee, that's what I'm drinking right now. I love the butter and MCT oil and coffee to create more of that fullness. So that's a tangent. But anyways, the idea here is that we all have our kryptonite, like Superman, those things that get in the way that add to our stress. You'll see here, it's anything from the mental to the physical level, things within our control, things outside of our control, whether that be poor self-care, nutrition, toxic work or personal environments, that inner critic, that voice in our ear. There's a whole multitude of things that contribute to our kryptonite. So when you see this list here and start thinking about those sorts of kryptonite distractions that contribute to your own day-to-day, I'd love to hear from you all now and to type into that chat box, what is one particular kryptonite area for you? I bet we will see some patterns in responses, and we might also see some differences as well. But with that, I would say one of my kryptonite areas that is on this list too, that sleep deprivation. I'm a night owl. I love to go, 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 but oftentimes that means that it's the wee hours of the morning. My schedule doesn't shift the next day. If I get into a pattern too frequently there of more than a day or two in a row, absolutely, that's a kryptonite area that then makes me feel stressed the next day. Ooh, Lisa says the inbox. I relate to the inbox as well. And yeah, we've got some others with hard time saying no, work environment, lack of sleep too. So a lot of universal themes here. So thank you for putting those in. And I'll just add too that these themes that are on this list and that are what I'm seeing come through the chat are absolutely the sort of areas that I coach through with my clients. So when we are focusing on stress management, we go into a deeper dive, spend time together over our weeks or even months of sessions, depending on what the goals are that they are working towards. And we focus on those factors that are getting in the way, that are creating that stress. So these sorts of themes absolutely resonate not only on a personal level, but from what I'm seeing with my clients, and that power of For example, you showing up today for this webinar, that's you being intentional, taking a small step towards managing your stress. And the more of that intentionality we create through showing up for coaching sessions, for reflecting on these things that cause you stress and committing to action, those are all the sorts of small steps that compound together over a coaching plan that we design that ultimately helps you to move forward. So here you are, we're doing it. Okay, enough of that kryptonite. Now let's further lock in why managing that stress matters. I think we all agree that it gets in the way of our happiness, our well-being. So again, today's focus, in order for us to take action, is for us to understand what sort of kryptonite contributes to our own flavors of stress. What are our own unique ways that we self-sabotage? The more that we understand about ourselves, which is what coaching sessions are all about, the more that we are able to control how we feel, the actions that we take to progress forward with any of the goals that we are looking to achieve. So we've got the background covered there. Now let's go ahead and focus on what we can do, those steps we can take to manage our stress and really work towards more of our own happiness. Okay, I'd love to take another poll here and see for the group, who here has heard of the happiness formula before? So again, a simple yes or no for the happiness formula. LC equals BP. It's super simple. We'll be sharing out this recording later, but if you want, in the meantime, I would encourage you to write it down. But okay, so lots of no's. Perfect. I love being able to teach something new here. So this is a simple concept that, again, through my coaching sessions, we always come back to. So the idea here is, in order for us to really feel our best, to not be stressed, our life conditions, meaning the situation around us, it has to be equivalent to our blueprint, meaning our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, the world, essentially our ideas about the way things should be. So the situation that's happening in life needs to be equivalent to our thoughts about the way that things should be. And when we go back to that idea of kryptonite and distractions, those get in the way in both areas of that formula. So there are certain actions we can take, whether it be getting more sleep, leveling up our nutrition, turning off our email or committing to certain work boundaries, changing jobs when the environment is toxic. Those would be elements to impact our life conditions, to align with our expectations of how they should be. If we feel like work should have a strong collaborative culture, if we feel like we should be and want to be our healthiest version of ourselves that wakes up each day feeling really energized and motivated, well, then we've got to shift those life conditions. But on the flip side of that, we know that there are life conditions that are also outside of our control. And in those cases, if we can't change the life conditions, then I really encourage my clients and myself to get creative and think about alternate ways of thinking in order to become more accepting or even embracing those life conditions. And so those thoughts and beliefs, absolutely a key piece about coaching. It's like a career coaching client, for example, if they feel like as part of their ideal that they really want to pivot into a new field. But let's say they come from, these are like real examples too, that they come from more of a creative arts background, but really they want to move more into the corporate sort of project management space. Well, in order to take the actions, the life conditions to make that change, they've got to take classes. They'll go through coaching to get that support. However, if their blueprint, their mindset is that they're not confident, they don't believe in themselves, that any employer is going to ever actually give them a chance. If they don't feel like or believe that they've got the transferable skills, we can have the right sort of process in place and the right actions. But if you're not really feeling it, then it's going to be really challenging to make that happen and you're going to be stressed out. So again, we want to focus on both of those areas, what you can control within them. So there you go, happiness formula. Okay, now here's another area for us to explore. And we know that we also self-sabotage. So we can be our own makers of kryptonite that leads to our stress. So part of my goal through coaching with my clients is helping them to understand themselves better, where that self-sabotaging behavior shows up. And through our exploration and reflection process, we can start building new habits and shifting those patterns towards ways that will ultimately serve them in feeling better and being less stressed. So as I go to the next slide here, I'm going to talk through what these different self-sabotage types are. And again, we all have our different flavors of self-sabotage. So I'd love to hear in that chat box, which of these applies to you? And maybe it's not just one, it might be multiple for you, as it is for me. So first off, self-sabotage type number one, deprioritizing your health. So let's say you're a giver. You are always focusing on others or your work, your family. And with that, you are always your last priority. That self-care, that's low on the list for you. Number two, taking on too much. Perhaps you might be described as someone who's like type A+++. I absolutely align to that number two, that take on too much, because I like to embrace the life philosophy that serves me in a lot of ways, but also not so much in others. I like to tell myself, why choose when I can have it all? But sometimes having it all, well, that creates a lot of stress and other impacts as well. So that's number two. Number three, negative self-talk. So you could be a rock star at what you're doing, their actions, feedback from others, yet at the end of the day, you being your own worst critic, that defines number three. Number four, pessimism. So if that sort of mindset that you commonly have is that you're always feeling like you're just waiting for that other shoe to drop, if it's more so about that glass half empty versus half full, then that's number four. And then lastly, number five, I don't really like this label, but lacking relationship skills, or at least it's not showing up for you that way. So let's say that you find that you commonly are not handling conflict well, that you're butting heads with those around you that you care about. That's absolutely another sabotage way that you might mean well, but if it's not perceived that way by others, well, then that's self-sabotage. So I'm going to pop over in the chat here, and I see that, yeah, we've got most of you that have a blend of those types, and you will likely find that certain situations, some of those types are going to show up more than others. So again, great news. Step one, labeling it, identifying and noticing your patterns. That's key to move forward with shifting patterns of thoughts and actions that aren't serving you, and using the strategies that we are going to cover. That's exactly like what we do in coaching, is that we have that process of discovery, and then we implement change from there. So with that in mind, now we are going to talk stress management strategies. And the good news here is the strategies that I'm sharing, it doesn't matter which self-sabotage type aligns with your unique self, that these strategies can be used regardless of the type, regardless of the situation. And just like I encourage with my clients, is to try these all on for size. Some are going to resonate with you more than others. And it's all about this process of trial and error. If we don't take steps forward, we're not going to learn. So I always encourage my clients to really flex here, make that commitment to explore all of these. And through that trial and error, we optimize to find the strategies that work best for you. So with that, we're going to kick off with the first strategy, which I will say is my favorite strategy. If you've coached with me before, you know that I come back to this one all of the time. So feel free to write in the chat too if this is a strategy that you've either heard of before, or if you've used it, that would be a yes. Otherwise, feel free to put in a no, and I'll describe along the way. But it's like the saying goes, emotion comes from motion. So oftentimes my clients come to me, they're feeling stressed out, they have situations that they want to solve for, and they try so hard to think their ways into feeling better, myself included. You know, we as human beings are very thoughtful people, but what I have found is that that's not always the easiest, quickest way to shift from that stress mindset to feeling better, feeling happier. And with that, the idea is our feelings and our body are interconnected. So the good news is when your emotions are, when you shift your body, that can have an immediate impact on how you feel. So if you think, for example, about being at your computer screen all day, filled with Zoom meetings, back to back, no breaks. Your eyes are probably getting glazed over. You're probably like shoulders tight, slumped at your desk. The posture is probably not that great. Energy level low, feeling drowsy. That's not a great feeling. And it's very difficult from that space to be motivated, energized, inspired. So rather than just toughing it out, a way to use your physiology would be taking small steps to change that physical state. So that could be something as simple as having a glass of water, having your coffee, getting up to use the bathroom, simple steps we're talking about here. Or even better, if you can go for a walk, or do some simple stretching and movement. Of course, your situation, where you're at, who you're with is going to define kind of the range of what you can do. But what I always tell my clients is it's really those small steps that matter. We're not talking about you needing to do a hour-long, high-intensity interval training workout to feel the benefits here. Like one small shift is enough to shift your physical state to the emotional state. And so that's a reason why I personally love doing Taekwondo so much. So for myself, I joined Taekwondo as a kid because I wanted to have a good workout, and it was a great way to spend time with friends. But now as an adult and over the years and with my coaching, I've also recognized that that's one of those key strategies that I use to help shift me into that state of how I want to feel by focusing on getting that workout in first. You know, even when I've been tired or feeling crappy or really stressed out about all the things that I have to do, I have yet to experience a time where I've left class and been like, oh, I just really regret going. I really wish that I hadn't had that solid workout right now. So that's the physiology piece. So I encourage you to think about how you can put that into action at some point today. So something to think about later on in the chat box. We're going to revisit that. And next, we're going to go to strategy number 2, choosing your focus. So the saying here is, where your focus goes, energy flows. So again, we think of that sort of filter we have on the world. If we are thinking glass half full versus glass half empty, well, being really intentional about what sort of piece of a situation that you are focusing on is one of those keys to manage your stress in any given moment. And clearing your mind of whatever the noise or distraction is can be a way to also help you more effectively choose that focus. So I would also encourage you then to really notice that pattern when that self-sabotage comes in, when your thoughts and feelings are creating that stress for you, to pause and really challenge yourself at that moment to ask, what do I need right now? What is best going to serve me here? What's an alternate way of thinking about the situation. Those are just a few examples of the sorts of questions and self-reflection that I walk through with my clients during our coaching sessions. Because again, you can read the slide and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Choose my focus, got it. But it's a lot different putting that into action, especially when we have our patterns of what we are focusing on. So having that sort of guided process in order for you to verbally process is so powerful. So whether that be verbalizing, or I also encourage, if you're taking notes, putting pen to paper, another great way to clear your mind. So that's choosing your focus. Let's move on to strategy number 3. And similarly here in the chat, I'd love to know if this is something you've heard of before. If so, a simple yes or no in the box. But the idea here is that our feelings are also influenced by the language that we are using. So for example, at Taekwondo, if I lost a sparring round where I have my gear on and I'm doing kicks and punches against another opponent, well, I lose that round. One of my thoughts could be like, well, I really sucked there. I can't believe I'm such a loser. I'm never going to get any better. So there's that sort of language I could be using, which is disempowering. If I stay in that space, it's probably not going to get me to be very motivated to raise my hand to spar anymore. But instead, if I really challenge myself to shift that language, to notice when it's more of that pessimistic self-sabotage side, for example, and instead perhaps I celebrate my failure. Maybe in that moment, I'm asking myself, what am I proud of? What have I learned through this experience? How is losing this round going to make me a better competitor moving forward? And if you notice that dialogue shift is empowering versus disempowering, it's objective, it's open-ended, it's creating that change based on being really intentional about the words that we are using. And again, I keep going back to that idea of noticing patterns, which is what I work through with my clients. So when we notice that pattern of language for you, then that's where we really work together to shift that narrative and to identify those empowering questions that you can use at any time that you notice that negative talk track coming. So as a next step here, I encourage all of you to reflect on and create 1 or 2 sort of empowering questions where you are being mindful of that language to shift from more of that stress, unhappy state to something that's going to be more growth oriented. So that's mind your language. Glad to see that there are a lot of you that you are familiar with that one. So again, your familiarity, great. Let's make sure that you're really putting it into practice. Okay, another strategy here, visualizing success. And so the idea here, have you ever heard of a mental rehearsal? Again, yes or no in the chat box. I've got the Olympic rings here because mental rehearsal, visualization is a strategy that many athletes use. So if we think of, for example, Michael Phelps, crazy good Olympic swimmer, and he is known for his own mental rehearsals and routines. So he has a very specific way that he warms up. It's consistent each time. And he also visualizes, even before he gets into the pool, as part of his training, he visualizes what it's going to look like and feel like to get into the water, what it's going to look and feel like to be actually in the race. He even prepares for different scenarios. So that way, in the moment, he's essentially already rehearsed and practiced what it's going to feel like to win. And so the idea here with visualization, and this can be with anything, it doesn't have to be with sports, this is with any goal. Maybe it's an interview that you really want to put your best effort forward, for example. That mental muscle is what ultimately improves even your physical muscle. And if you want some more data to back it up, because I'm someone who also really resonates with science-based approaches and research, the University of Chicago did a study that helped to confirm this. So they took participants who were playing basketball, like taking free throw shots. And so they had groups that took their shots, they looked at their percent accuracy, and then they had one group physically practice throughout the week afterwards, and then gauged how much their performance improved. They had another group that only mentally rehearsed. So they visualized what it felt like to take that shot, imagine it going in the net. And then they had the control group who did not do any practicing. So I'd love to see some guesses in the chat. What percent improvement, if you had to guess, the group that physically practiced their free throw shots, what percent did they improve? The ones who did the physical side, they actually got to keep making those baskets. So are we talking 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 100%? Okay. So we're all across the board here. I see the low side 10, maybe the high side around 60%. So any gain here is a win, right? We've got up to 75 as well. So, okay, we've got that guess. Now, another guess. I'd love to know if you had to put the percentage for the people who did the visualization. So they only mentally rehearsed taking those free throw shots. What percent do you think they improved, if at all? I'm looking here and it's seeming like similar numbers as the other group. Maybe, maybe not. But okay, these are all great guesses. And actually, I don't have the number in front of me exactly, but it is, I believe, 24% for the physical group, the one that actually did the free throws. And it was 23%, so just 1% lower for the mental rehearsal group. So let that sink in, that all you have to do is close your eyes and really visualize the goal that you want to achieve to gain that accuracy. And in other words, it's another way to feel better, to manage that stress. Any outcome that's causing you that stress will reflect on how you want to feel, what it would look like to take that action, and boom, there's data that backs up that actually can support how you define your own reality. Okay, we've got one more stress management strategy here for you today, and that is connecting to your purpose. And I have an image of a compass here. I think this really resonates, especially with my career coaching clients. When they work with me through our Career Method ALV coaching program, we start first with self-exploration to really understand things like, what are you passionate about? What are your strengths? What's important to you? What are those values? And what is your purpose? Or ideally, why are we here? What's that ideal next chapter of your career or life? And what does that look like? And we explore that both personally and professionally. All of those different data points help form a constellation of what that ideal sort of career alignment is for you. And so we think of it like that internal compass. So my goal through coaching is to help you in building your internal compass. And no surprise there that the stronger your internal compass is, the more that you know about yourself and the more that you can connect with that purpose, the less stressed you're going to feel. So really building your own self-understanding, understanding what's important to you is going to drive that overall state of well-being. And so we also need reminders too. It can be great to know what we want life to be about. Maybe we did a vision board or we did some reflection at the beginning of the year. We set a resolution. Those are all great first steps. But if that vision board is tucked away behind your desk, if it's not up, if it's not something you're seeing every day, if that resolution is something you wrote down and then you just tucked away, or it's hidden in your email, that's not going to be as effective as connecting with what's important with you on a regular basis. It's so easy for us to forget, especially with everything going on in the world. So that reminder of your purpose, what motivates you, that's going to be one of those key areas that helps to see you through. Or in other words, it helps to build that resilience, which if you've coached with me, you know, that's one of my favorite words. My two favorite coaching words and focus areas are building intentionality through our actions and building resilience. So that way we can manage that stress and burnout and whatever comes our way to keep working towards our goals. So committing and connecting to your purpose, that's that strategy. Number 5, again, great in theory, but it's all about that implementation. It's all about that commitment. So as we start to close for today, I would really encourage you all to explore what you are willing to commit to. And again, you showing up here, that's a great commitment. I so appreciate that you committed an hour of your precious time to be here, to learn and grow from each other, and to really start learning some of these concepts or to reinforce concepts that you may have heard of before. So that's a commitment number 1. Now, these other commitments, I have questions here that I would love for you to reflect on. And commitments are great, but one of the great things about coaching is accountability. So the accountability we create through our sessions. So my clients, they'll share their commitments. They're going to be filling it out in their session forms. They know we're going to be focused on checking in and building off of them next time around. That's accountability with these commitments. So I would love for us to create some accountability for you all now as you look at these questions, and go ahead and type one of those answers in the chat box, even just putting out to the universe that, hey everyone on this call, fellow community of like-minded people who want to manage stress, these are the commitments I'm going to make. So I'd love to hear from some of you and answer to any one of these questions. So with that, going back to that idea of kryptonite, those distractions, what is one small step that you will take to reduce a piece of that kryptonite in your life? So each of my coaching sessions, we always land with at least one small step they're going to take. Maybe it's cutting down screen time, going to bed earlier, could be a multitude of things. So one step. The other question, what is one stress management strategy that you'll put into action? So today we breezed through 5 different examples of stress management strategies. So I encourage you to try them all, but maybe one of those jumped out at you. Maybe you want to try that mental rehearsal first and see how that shifts things for you. So one stress management strategy to start. And then with coaching, we want to create that accountability by getting specific with our next steps. So with that, when will you complete these steps by? Okay, so you say you're going to focus on positive talk or put that cell phone in another room. Now, when is that going to happen? I would love if you start today. Of course, the sooner the better. So think about the when. We get more specific with who is going to hold you accountable. In the same way, through the structure of a coaching session, I help to support my clients in their accountability, but I also encourage them to think about how they can tap into their own support network. So if you have others, friends, family, other people who share the same goals as you, who can you reach out to be an accountability buddy? And how will they hold you accountable? Are you going to send them a text or email update? Are they going to reach out to you every week to ask how things are going? Or might it look like something else? So there's no right or wrong. That's the beauty with coaching, is the strategies that we put forth. You get to define them because it's all about what resonates the most with you. And lastly here, I note that I can support you each step of the way, whether it's myself or our other team of coaches. The idea here, my wish is that we have provided you with a high level of these different tools and strategies so you can go forth on your own. But also, I know that through my experience with other clients that there are many of you that may really enjoy the additional support and momentum through working with a coach on these different areas. And so with that, again, Jill's going to pop that consult link into the box. But if you're curious to learn even a little bit about, okay, well, what would coaching look like for me? How could I really work on managing my stress and achieving my goals? Then schedule that consult so that way you can explore more. And again, our gift to you for attending is that if you did decide coaching was right for you, then we're going to give you a coupon code. So that way you get your first session free as part of that membership. So if you have questions about that, again, we're going to have the Q&A very shortly here. And I'm going to close out with a Taekwondo picture as well. And so again, I always like to go back to my martial arts experience, because using my physiology to shift my emotional state, managing my stress, that is the number one element that's really worked for me. And Taekwondo, I think, is the perfect embodiment of it. And it's such a nice complement to my own coaching journey, because it's something I mentioned before. I did it as a kid. I almost got to black belt, but then my family moved and then I just never took it up again. And then the more years passed, I was like, oh, that seems hard. I don't really know. Like, what if I don't like it? Da, 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 da. But it was on my bucket list to earn my black belt. And once I took that first action, which was from my own coach, by the way, encouraging me to just take that first step of signing up for an appointment, visit a school and see what you think. I wouldn't have expected that fast forward 4 years later, that here I would be, for example, in this picture, part of a global network of Taekwondo instructors as a second degree black belt, also instructing others, really continuing my journey and being able to leverage my martial arts experience into my coaching and vice versa. It's just become such a part of who I am, and that using that physiology piece is absolutely something that I so wish for you all, that you find your unique way to use that strategy to work for you. And so if you haven't seen this picture before, just a fun little wrap-up piece here. So I think there's about 70 people in this picture. And let's play Where's Waldo. Can you see, take a guess where I am in this picture? So we've got 3 rows of instructors. And go ahead, if you haven't guessed before, let me know where you think you see me. And I'm going to give that a moment before we wrap with our final slide that's going to have that consult link again. Oh, boom, Lauren got it. Row 3, second person. There you go. I am definitely shorter than the people around me. And while I wear my hair down today, if you coach with me, you know, that's typically my look, is I've got the high bun, that's definitely bigger now with COVID, and the headband. So nice job, Lauren. Okay, yep, the inside scoop. So last but not least, then again, to get in touch before Q&A, my email address is at the top. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We are going to have Q&A time right now, though, to get to any questions that we haven't already covered. And again, though, this is really meant to be that tip of that iceberg. I hope you've gotten a taste of the sorts of strategies and tools that I work through with my clients. So if you'd love to better understand what that could look like for you, then again, feel free to schedule that free consultation with our relationship specialist team. And that way, if you do that today, then you'll receive that free coupon code for that first session free if you ultimately decide that you want to move forward with a membership. So again, our thank you to you if you schedule that consult today. And with that, I'd be happy to wrap here with some questions, and thank you all for your time, your energy, and your interaction today. It's so much more fun when everyone's using the chat box versus me just talking. So thank you for that. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was awesome. We do have one question, and we'll give everyone some time. If you do have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box. So the one question we had, well, as a reminder, accountability, Sarah, someone suggested that the slide with the kryptonite, maybe we can include that in the follow-up email. So if we do have that as a PDF, we can just share.
I can dig around. I feel like
okay, cool.
will have that somewhere. I will
Okay,
take a
awesome.
look.
Okay, good. Okay, and then so the one question, hang on, oops, I wrote it down and now I don't know where I put it. Can you please explain more on asking empowering questions?
Ooh, yes. So, as Jill will attest to as well, like that is such a cornerstone of coaching. So, empowering questions, that's all about how we can improve what we choose to focus on in any given moment. So, the questions we ask ourselves ultimately influence our answers. So, an empowering question during a stressful situation, let's say um, we screwed up on something, okay, we failed at something, that can have a lot of weight to it, weight that doesn't serve us. So a disempowering question would be like, how could I be so stupid as to screw that thing up, for example? And so an empowering question, really that definition is, what is something, a question that's going to be solutions oriented, that's going to help us move forward, something that's going to help us learn. So that's where, instead of how could I be so stupid, your brain's going to try and rack through all the ways that you were stupid and screwed up. So an empowering question would be instead something like, what can I learn from this experience? How will I be stronger from this error? What will I do differently next time to increase my accuracy? So empowering means it's going to be solutions oriented, moving us towards solving whatever the situation is at hand, or also solutions oriented in terms of helping us shift into a state of feeling how we want to feel. So if we want to feel down and out on ourselves, then yeah, it's really easy to let that inner critic and those sorts of negative, disempowering questions happen. And so through coaching, we are trained in the types of questions that we ask. But I also encourage my clients, we brainstorm together. We come up with lists of the questions that they can take with them as well to practice on their own. But one thing I will say is, and of course I'm biased as a coach, but I think there's just such a difference between even when we ask ourselves a question in our own head versus when it's an objective, unbiased third party who's there purely to help support us and have them ask us that question. It's just a completely different sort of experience, which is why my clients also really enjoy being able to have a dialogue around those questions versus just an internal dialogue. Great question.
Very good question. Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, if anyone will give anyone else, if they have any other questions, whether it's about the presentation or coaching or, anything in terms of, your own personal experience with stress, please go ahead and put those in the chat box. But I know that this is really great, awesome content and very, very valuable information. So give yourself some time to let it all process, let it all digest. And then if you do have any questions that come up, I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone, all the attendees tomorrow or later tonight, but probably tomorrow. And I will include the recap as well as a few other things you can stay in contact with us. So I know someone asked about the events newsletter. So I'll put all of that information in there just to make sure that you are staying up to date with all of our events. And we'll see if we can figure out to include that PDF. And lastly, if you do have any of those lingering questions, you can reply back to that whole email. Sarah's on there. I'm on there. It's not automatic. I actually write those and send them. So you can reply back. And if you have any questions, you can ask there. So thank you all so much for joining today. And thank you, Sara, again, for all of this. This was extremely helpful and much needed, clearly.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And again, well, thank you as always, Jill, for being such an awesome host for these webinars. And again, thank you for the attendees. Truly, it's so much more fun when we are interactive. So I'm just so glad that I got to get to know so many of you through today's session, and look forward to getting to know you further with next steps.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everyone. Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And if you're in Chicago, enjoy our 40th snowstorm of the season. So, well, thank you all. Hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.